Hello, and welcome to the Empowered Learning Podcast. This is your host, Andy Bennett. On today's episode, we welcome Mr. Clayton Sampson. Clayton was born in Trinidad and Tobago, and since moving to the U.S., has made the absolute most of his American dreams. Defying the odds and all of the critics, Clay has carved out an incredible life and serves as a mentor, coach, and friend to thousands, giving freely of his time, reshaping mindsets, and helping people live life on their own terms. Please welcome my friend, Clayton Sampson.
Hello, Clayton. How you doing, sir?
I'm top of the roll, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. We've been going back and forth trying to get this scheduled for a while, so I really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome, my friend.
Awesome. So you and I have known each other for a couple years or so, but for those that maybe are coming from my circle that don't know you, I'm sure you have a large circle that hopefully are going to be watching this as well. But for maybe those that have not heard about Clay Sampson, give us a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, I'm just a regular guy from a small island called Trinidad and Tobago in the West Indies. Been in the United States. In fact, it was interesting. My dad always says, America's the land of opportunity, and no disrespect to anyone that was born in the United States, but sometimes when you're outside of the sphere of an amazing country or amazing situation, you don't realize how big it really is and how special it is to be. So sometimes you realize how many people that come to America that are super successful because you were born in the middle of it, and when you've seen stuff outside and you come to you appreciate it a little bit more. So coming to the United States and back in 1977, so it's been a long time. So amazing country, amazing situation. I started in the car industry first, right out of college. And that lasted a little while, but I soon realized that being an entrepreneur is a little bit better than going through a regular career and job. I actually was planning on owning my own car dealerships, but about 2002, just before I purchased my first dealership, I was, in fact, it's interesting. This is a very interesting story, but a waitress at Olive Garden told me about this opportunity. And I went, sounds like a pyramid. Not really interested. No, it doesn't sound really great. But for some reason, something told me go home and take a look at the website. And what I saw on the website was people in the middle of the week enjoying their family. They're in Hawaii. They're enjoying their life. And all I know is I put in 70, 80 hours a week, running my dealership and doing all that stuff. And I went, that's the life I want. So made the move in 2002. And decided to leave corporate America, and I never left back. And fortunately, I was able to retire about 10 years ago, and I'm just living life on my own terms right now and enjoying grandchildren and my wife and my queen, and it's been an amazing ride.
I love it. A little Lakers basketball every once in a while, yeah?
In fact, it's funny, I made a post in my Facebook page a couple days ago. I said, I have no stress, no anxiety in my life unless I'm watching a Laker game. That's the only time. And seeing that they lost 1-3. Yeah, that was the stress and anxiety.
I hear you. Well, my team prevailed on that one, but I can relate because I'm a Cowboys fan, and that's just kind of a perennial just disappointment. That's just kind of what we live with. So I can relate. So it's all good.
Yes.
I love it. So you kind of alluded to the fact that you've now retired. I know that you still hustle, even though you're saying that you're, that you're retired. But one of your catchphrases, what do you do every day, Clay? Go ahead and fill in the gap here. What do you do every day?
I live life on my own terms.
There it is right there. I love it.
Absolutely.
So you kind of transitioned out of, like you said, corporate America into some entrepreneurial things. And on your Facebook page, which we'll post that in the notes here, it says mentor for free, where much is given, much is expected. Tell me a little bit about what led to that framework, as far as like, hey, if you're wanting to, learn from me, understand I'm going to give you a lot, but much is expected. Tell me a little bit about the genesis of that idea.
Okay. So, back in 2002, when I was rescued from corporate America and rescued from life of working as an entrepreneur, just doing owning my own dealership or whatever, from this waitress. In fact, I love to say her name still is Phoebe Lowe. She's the one that actually changed my life forever. You never know who is going to change. And this is a waitress at Olive Garden that started all of this. So it's amazing. Yeah. So I basically got involved in this company. In fact, I think you can probably see some of the accolades in the wall behind me. I was blessed enough to be number one in the company that had about 250,000 agents nationwide. And it was a beautiful deal. It was a beautiful situation. And I felt that, with what I've received from that and how great things were with that, where much is given, much is expected, but it's not what I expect from people that I've given. It's what has been given to me. So by me being given a lot is expected of me. So what I like to do now is I like to give back to the community, give back for free. And I started a little organization called Envy Social, which it's free to join, free to be part of. We do a lot of different things. I do a lot of mentoring, and it's just something I give away now. I use the word free, but there's a cost. So let me make sure that we're clear. In fact, I like to tell people, let's have an understanding now so we don't have a misunderstanding later.
I like it.
So the understanding now is I will help you and I'll teach you all the mindset training, all the different things for you to be more successful with your health, with your relationships, with your career, whether or not you want to leave that career, whatever, but there is a cost, and the cost is very simple. At the end of the year, in December, I need you to look and see what I've helped you earn because of your increase in your position, your business, your job, whether you did investing, whatever you did. And you take 1/3 of that, and you're going to give it away to people on the street. And it's called a GOLO, and it's called Gift One, Lift One. So you will go to a restaurant, when you go out to dinner, when you go to the gas station, if you go grocery shopping, you pass out $100 bills. And you don't tell people who you are. I did 2 GOLOs just before I got here. I blessed 2 people with $200 with a $100 bill each, and they were like blown away at a restaurant I was just at literally 20 minutes ago. And that's my give back. So I ask for you to do that in return for what I've given you. I don't want anything from you. You don't have to tell the person your name. You don't have to tell them anything. It's just gift one, lift one. And you never know. The first gentleman, in fact, he was just getting off shift, and another waitress was taking over, and I blessed him just before he left. And he must have come back to me about 3 times and say, thank you so much. You have no idea. It was so slow today, and this means the world to me. You never know what you're doing for people, and sometimes you don't have to do a GOLO with cash. You can call 10 people on your phone that you haven't talked to in a year and just say, how's your day? I was just thinking about you. How's life? Just saying hi. So GOLOs come in many, many ways. So
I love it. I love it. Yep, that's good stuff right there. And I love the fact that it doesn't have to be cash, right? Like you said, it's giving of your time, giving of your attention. Hey, I was thinking about you today, and to your point, right? This whole journey that you have, the dream life that you've lived in the last 10, 15 years, whatever it is, all started because that one person said, hey, you should check this out. And I think a lot of people maybe either presume that nothing good can come from that, or say, who am I, right? Who am I to give this to this one person? And I think we doubt ourselves way too much, and maybe are a little too cynical for our own goods.
Well, I think it comes down, Andy, it comes down to like a simple question. I can ask you that question. I know you probably heard it before. I'm sure you have.
Go for it.
I'm sure you have, but
yes.
Let's do it for the audience anyway. And I've asked this question thousands and thousands of times. And the question is, look, I have a briefcase, and in my briefcase, I have $1 million cash, and I'm willing to give it to anyone that's willing to jump out of an airplane without a parachute. And I ask the question, will you? And I've asked that question thousands and thousands of times. And 99% of the time, I get the same answer. No, I'm not willing to jump out of an airplane without a parachute. Right. Well, you just lost $1 million because the airplane's on the ground.
Right.
I never said it was in the air. In fact, what you did is you assumed and you jumped to conclusions, which is what most people do when something comes their way that they don't understand. They jump to conclusions. But jumping to conclusions can cost you $1 million. In fact, if you did reality, let's take the reality of the situation with airplanes. Where are most airplanes right now? Most of them are on the ground. I never said it was a 747. It could be a little Cessna.
Right.
Sitting 8 feet off the ground. Yep. But people like to jump to conclusions. So one of the things that I do, and that have changed in my life, I do something called fire, ready, aim. Instead of aim, get ready, fire. No, I fire, ready, aim. I figure it out later, because you never know what opportunity is sitting in front of you. And if you made the wrong decision, you washed all those blessings away that you could have. You never know.
Yep. Very good. And to your point, like how much is your doubt and your jumping to conclusions really costing you? I completely agree.
Amen.
Yep. I love it.
Extremely expensive, my friend. Very expensive.
Right. Right. And how sad is that? I mean, I was going to ask, what percentage would you say no to that question? But I mean, you beat me to the punch. You beat me to the story end of the punchline there, that 99% of folks assume, and rather than asking questions or keeping an open mind, they just like, oh, it's too good to be true. Here's another one for you. How often do you think you've heard that in your last 15, 20 years? Oh, it's too good to be true.
No, I hear that all the time. And
probably every day, yeah?
Yeah, all the time. It sounds too good to be true. Now it's gotten a little bit, I think earlier in my career of helping others and being a mentor, I heard it more. But I think now people do a little bit of research, and they've seen my content. In fact, they've seen my content privately, because one thing I don't do is I'm not public. I don't have a YouTube channel. I don't want to be monetized or things like that. I'm looking for people that are really serious about changing your life, and I'll help them for free. I don't want anything in return besides what we just talked about, giving back to the community. But it's interesting. A lot of people say that, but now the community, I think I'll have a lot more people skeptical if I was public, because there's so many naysayers. But the fact that we have honed it into referrals and friends of friends and friends of family, it's pretty powerful. We have a small group, but it's a powerful group.
Right. Well, and I'm jumping around on my notes here, but another one of your you got a lot of famous sayings, by the way. If you don't know this, there's sayings that amongst the group that everyone knows. This is a Clayism. I'm not sure if that's a coined term, but one of the Clayisms is documentation beats conversation. And I think, to your point, in that group, what can you argue with? I mean, here are hard and fast numbers. Here's where I've done this, and you do that daily. Like, here's numbers, here's hard facts. Like, you can't argue with numbers. And I think that does get past and get through that whole idea of like, it's too good to be true, because it's like, obviously it's not, because I've done it day in and day out for, however long. So I love it.
Yeah. But there's still people that have skepticism, because again, the skepticism and where someone is in their life, you can't blame them for it, because they're making decisions based on their experience.
Yes. And
some people in life have been through some rough things, and they've been through a lot of people that are trying to cheat them or scams or whatever. So I understand. I understand why they are how they are, but you have to grow. The key in life is very simple. If you don't have the mindset that I want to be better today than I was yesterday, and my goal is to be better tomorrow than I am today, if you don't have that mindset, then you're not going to grow. I mean, I tell people all the time, look at your friends. Once you take an inventory of your 5 closest friends, chances are you're within 10% of the income of all of them.
Yeah.
You need to friend up. Sometimes you need to go to that next level. If you hang around 5 millionaires, you're going to be number 6.
Yeah.
If you hang around 5 bums, you're going to be number 6.
That's very true.
And that's reality.
Yeah. Yep. What is it, that the saying that you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most?
Amen.
Yep. I love it. So again, you're beating me to my punch. You're reading from my script here. I know from having, been in your group for a while now, the number one thing before we do all this stuff, before we talk about the money-making activities and all these possibilities, the number one thing, and you preach this, is mindset. Tell us why mindset is most important, and why is that something that you just drill into our heads, that before you do all this stuff, you got to get your mind right. And to your point, you got to be in this growth mindset where you're going to be better today than you were yesterday. Why is that so important?
Well, because you have the majority. Let's look at society in a whole. Number one, they don't teach the type of things that you need to be taught in school. They don't teach public speaking. They don't teach banking. They don't teach how to deal with credit. They don't teach how to deal with financing. None of this stuff is taught in our general school. So you're having people learning stuff from their parents, or from social media, or from the 5 average people that you're around. So the number one thing I have to break first, I have to break that cycle of the misunderstandings that you've been taught for the last 20 years, 15 years. 30 years, 40 years, because you're going to bring that baggage with you. And we have to break the cycle first. So before you can become successful or take yourself to the next level, we have to have you think and see different things. Because the number one thing I can do for you is I can expose you. Exposure is the key, because you can't unsee something that you've seen. So if I get you mindset trained, I'm going to show you different things that you're now exposed to. And you may have never been exposed to those things before. And that exposure starts beginning to change how you view things. So wait a minute, I never thought of it that way. No one's ever said, and this is one of the reasons I do something called the wisdom walk, where I just expose people. Like I think I've done 87 episodes, and that just exposes people to different things that they've never thought of before, because they don't teach this stuff in school.
Yep. I think, am I correct? The wisdom walks are on YouTube. They can watch those.
Yes. My team actually put them on YouTube. I've never gone over to YouTube to look at it. So I know I'm not building it there. So I think there's very few followers on there, because most of it is in our private group. But for ease of finding all of them in one shot, they did put it on YouTube. But again, it's not something that most people use the Vimeo ones on our back office in our Envy social group.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So as you were saying this, and again, I think we've talked for a while now that, the 21-day mindset challenge, which I'm now on day 16, I believe, the first time around. And then it's, rinse, wash, repeat. This one right here was Steve Harvey. Am I correct? Right? Wasn't that his video? Exposure is key. And once you've been exposed to something, you can't unsee, this lifestyle. You can kid yourself and say that you don't want that, but you do. And you can have that if you, apply yourself and increase your mindset to where you see opportunity rather than excuses. Yeah.
Amen.
Yep. Good stuff. Awesome. So another group that you have is the Good Life 7-step challenge. Kind of tell us that's been around a while, probably longer than Envy. Am I correct?
Wow. The Good Life is very, very interesting. In fact, let me just pop it up here as I'm looking. The Good Life was born. Let me see how long ago. I've done so many different things to help humanity get to another level. Can't remember how old that is. Good Life has been around. It looks like my first post was somewhere. I think it's been 10 years.
That's what I was thinking. I think it was 14. I remember seeing something.
Maybe 14 years ago. And the concept still stays the same. There's a 7-step challenge to life. And here are the 7 steps. There's mindset, which is always number one. I show people, mindset. You can't do anything without mindset. I show you how you can make more money. Mindset, save money, make more money, grow the money you make, which is we can do a podcast strictly on grow the money you make just by itself. Keep the money you make, pay it forward, which is giving back, and leave a legacy. And those, to me, are the 7 steps of life.
Pay forward and then leave legacy. Is that right?
Yep, and leave a legacy. Amen.
So you are a man of faith, and I know that. So for those that don't know, like-minded brother here, I actually had to fill in for Sunday school this last week, and one of the scriptures was about, oh darn it, I just lost it. It was something about this of like leaving a legacy. Darn it. I shouldn't have talked about it ahead of time. I should have just spit it out there. It'll come back to me. But anyways, there was a connection to exactly what you just said right there, which I thought was kind of ironic timing wise. So, but that's what it was. I think it's in one of the Gospels. It talks about like what law can there be against these, right? The fruit of the Spirit. Like how is any of this? How could anybody debate this or say, hey, this is not a good idea, right? Why would we not want to have a better mindset or leave a legacy or pay it forward? All this stuff is good stuff, and it's worth the time and the effort to get in there and grow and spend time on yourself to improve yourself. So wonderful, wonderful stuff. I'm in the midst of all of that, and it's one of those things that you can do it 100 times and still get something different and new out of it every single time.
Amen. Absolutely.
So you can't tell I'm a disciple here. Clay, I'm loving it, man. I appreciate you being on here, and I've been looking forward to this one for a long time because I know the impact that you make on thousands of people in that little group. So I'm hoping that this can now expand this out to other people that maybe, for whatever reason, had not heard of all of the great stuff you're doing, and welcome them into the group because it's a wonderful place to be. trying to look through some of the other notes here. I mean, we've hit quite a few of the other ones here. Let's talk for a second. I have a couple more bullet points that I want to hit before we shift gears a little bit. But the title of the podcast is Empowered Learning. You've mentioned that, a lot of the things that people kids rather, need to learn, they're not learning in school. You mentioned a few of those. So what would you do if you could wave your magic wand and improve education in America? What are some things that you think that we need to improve on?
Well, there's very few things that's being done with life skills. I mean, they don't teach life skills. They don't talk about credit. They don't talk about how money grows or how money works. There's nothing like that. I mean, think about this for a second. If you really pay attention, just think about this process. And I'm going to use, and again, this is no disrespect to anyone. I'm not trying to disrespect the class. I'm trying to make a point. Okay. So the point there is poor, there's middle class, and then there's rich.
Right.
Let's talk about those three things for a second. Okay. Poor people make money to pay bills.
Right.
That's what they think. That's what poor people do. Now, I've been all three, so believe me, I understand this.
Right.
Middle class, what they do is they use money to buy nice things that mostly they can't afford because they're financing it. They have really good credit, and they're buying things and trying to look very rich to their friends on social media or whatever. And that's middle class.
Right.
And then what wealthy people do is wealthy people use the money they have to make more money, and the money that money makes is what they use to buy very nice things. So I call it money having babies. So your money is the parents. Whatever money you have is the parents. Parents have babies. So the money that your money makes is the babies. You get to spend the babies. Don't ever spend the parents. Because if you spend the parents, there's no more babies.
Right.
So these are the things that they need to teach in school that they don't. They don't teach money management. They don't teach public speaking. They don't. I mean, you go get to school to be a doctor, and they don't teach you how to manage your money. They don't teach you anything about credit. They don't teach you anything. And you go to school for 8, 10, 12 years, and it's just ridiculous. There's nothing being taught to get us ready for the real world. So how do we get ready for the real world? We use social media. We use what our parents taught us. We use what our 4 or 5 friends closest to us teach us. And it's this cycle that we go through. And it's time to break the shackles of that cycle. And that's what NB does. That's what that's what I would like to teach. I would like to continue teaching people there are other ways to get around your situation. And that's what the 1% knows. And that's why the 1% keeps the 99% the way they are.
Right.
It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it is sad. But I mean, kudos to you for and I think I'm sure you would relate to Robert Kiyosaki. He's one of those that is on the wealthy side, but not so much of like, hey, I have this and I'm going to keep this. He was like, how can I give back and help people get out of this mindset and get up to this? I would guess that most of the wealthy are not trying to help the poor become wealthy. So you are one of the very select few that are on this side and wanting to bring people up rather than keep them down. Is that a fair statement?
I would say that's 100% fair. And when you really think about the difference of Robert Kiyosaki and all the people, I mean, a lot of people do this and they give great information, but they're giving great information so they can continue making money. And again, I'm not against anyone making money and charging people for what they do. Several of my mentors that I don't know personally, they have all these fees and they charge 50 grand for this class or 10 grand for this class or whatever. It's just something that I'm not willing to do. I mean, again, that's where the blessings of where much is given, much is expected. And I have the life that God has given me, and I want to bless people with that life. And here's, in fact, I'm gonna say this one really, really slow. Maybe you can write this down. I know you're writing this down.
And now, a brief commercial from today's sponsor.
Do you know how much of your mortgage payment goes to interest? Whether you're an experienced homeowner or a first-time buyer, you probably know that a good interest rate is critical to paying off your mortgage successfully. A difference of just 1% can mean thousands more or less in your pocket after your mortgage is paid. Even if you think you're getting a great deal on your mortgage payment and an ultra-low interest rate, you're probably not getting the full story. Because the banks want their cash up front, your mortgage payment is front-end loaded, so you'll be paying a lot more in interest from the start. That means less money towards your actual loan payment and more money in the lender's pocket. So, take a guess at what percentage of your monthly payment goes to interest. 10%? 20? Maybe even 30%? Not even close. On a $300,000 30-year mortgage at 4% interest, on your very first payment, you'd pay $1,000 of a $1,432 monthly payment to interest. That's 70% of your payment going straight to the bank. So, what can you do about it? It can seem impossible to fight back against your lender, but if you think you have to settle for a future of high interest rate mortgage payments, think again. Imagine a future where you're debt-free, a life of comfort, confidence, and financial freedom. We're talking about a tool that could save thousands of dollars for you and your family and empower you to live the lifestyle you've always dreamed of. The best part about it, it's not a dream. It's not magic either. It's called the Money Max account, and it's already helped Americans eliminate over $2 billion in mortgage and other debt payments. United Financial Freedom developed the Money Max to be an all-in-one tool designed to get you out of debt as quickly as possible. By strategically calculating your payments, debts, and other expenses, Money Max can help you get out of debt in as little as 7 to 10 years. Why pay more to the bank for more time than you need to? Skip the expensive interest payments and get ready for a debt-free future with the Money Max account.
To learn more and schedule your free complimentary savings report, go to moneymax.com/empower. And now, back to the Empowered Learning Podcast.
Here's how I see the world.
Okay.
And I'm gonna break this down. I'm gonna go really, really slow, and
Okay.
hopefully everybody can understand.
All right.
1% control the world. That's the 1%ers. Okay. 4% are their puppets.
Okay.
So 1% control the world, 4% are their puppets. 90% are asleep. 5% know and try to wake up the 90%. So the other 5% know that 90% is asleep, know 4% is puppets, and know 1% is wealthy, and the 5% are now trying to wake up the 90%. The 1% uses the 4%, their puppets, to prevent the 5% from waking up the 90%.
Okay.
That's how I see the world.
Yeah. I don't know how you could argue with that. I mean, the 5% up here are going to argue that point. Isn't it interesting though? Because I mean, you can tell that this is a vast minority of the population that's here. I'm sure you watched The Matrix, yes?
Yes.
Matrix. Yeah. So, I mean, I think of it, and this is a weird connotation, but like you're asleep, and some people would prefer to be asleep rather than be awakened to the fact of the reality, right? So of this 90%, maybe 80% of them, or maybe 50% of them are happy being blissfully unaware of what's going on right there, which I think, to your point, it's like, I can show the way. If they choose not to take it, that's on them, right? I mean, it's at that point, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Yeah.
No, well, the 90% that's asleep, they're asleep because they have no exposure.
Right. And then once they've been exposed,
you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
I mean, I found out something 59 days ago. Yeah, that's how disciplined I am on the days that most people don't know in the world. And it's ridiculous after finding it out, after learning it, because you don't know what you don't know until you know.
Right. And back to your point, and you can see how, everything goes back to the idea of mindset, right? You could know all of the great things in the world, but if you are going to prejudge and make an assumption that, oh, that's too good to be true, or, oh, that must be a scam, or, oh, this is a pyramid, whatever, right? Whatever excuse they're going to do, you can show them the world, but if they're not going to make that leap or trust in that process, then that's on them. I mean, all you can do, to your point, is expose them, and then past that, it's really on them to accept or not. Am I?
Well, here's a thought for you, Andy. A lot of people make a statement that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. knowledge is power. I've heard that since I was a little boy.
Right.
Knowledge isn't power.
Okay.
The execution of knowledge is power.
Okay.
Knowledge is not power, because you can give tonight. I can see in the back of your screen, you're about to give some knowledge to some people. I know where you're going to be going with your little your little things I see on your deal there, and that knowledge is, people are going to say, "Wow, that's powerful."
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not powerful. It's just knowledge.
Right.
Should you execute what he's about to teach you, that's powerful.
Yep.
Not the knowledge.
It's very true. Very, very true. I love it. So we could not have planned this any better. You would think that we rehearsed this all day, but literally, 5 minutes before we started to hit record, he was coming in from traffic and we just jumped into here. So this is just how we're vibing right here. So just believe it. Again, believe it or not, it's up to you, right? So to Clay's point, let's talk a little bit about this. You mentioned 59 days ago, your eyes were opened to a pretty awesome thing. So Clay, tell me your experience with United Financial Freedom Money Max account. Tell me about why are you so excited about this?
Well, 59 days ago, I was redoing my estate planning. So my 60th birthday is coming up. So I told my queen, I says, we need to kind of shift some things around. My term policy ends at age 75, and we have to do a couple of things and get a few things done. And we're going through that process. I says, while we're doing that, let me go online and see if I can find someone that can pay off the rental properties should something happen to me, so you don't have to use a living trust or insurances to take care of those issues. It will just be an automatic thing that if my demise happens, then the mortgage is automatically paid off. And I couldn't find a company, even Googling it. So it has to be added to the insurances, to my IULs or whole life or whatever we have.
Right.
So because I Google, of course, artificial intelligence pops in, and then all of a sudden the next day, a whole bunch of ads start popping up on Facebook, and one of them caught my attention.
Okay.
And one said, pay off your mortgage in 5 to 7 years. I'm like, that's interesting, because 20-something plus years ago, when I was in the mortgage industry, there was a company out of Australia that came to the United States and says, hey, I can do some refinances for you. And I said, okay, well, everybody in the world does refinances. They said, but ours is a little bit different. We show people how to refinance your home and then pay it off in 5 to 7 years. I went, oh, that's kind of interesting. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't do it myself, because at that time my mortgage was over $1 million. So I couldn't do it, but I got all my friends and family to do it, and they all had their mortgages paid off in 5 to 7 years. So that kind of got my attention. So I went, wow, I wonder if, because the company didn't last very long, because again, the 1% controls the 4%. Right. Like I just went through that. So do you think, look, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Chase, makes $35 million a year. Do you think he makes $35 million a year because people are paying off their mortgages early? No, he doesn't. Okay. So they do not want us to know these things. So that company was ran out of this country so fast, it was unbelievable. So I thought they came back. But they didn't. It was some software that came back, and I started doing some math, and I started checking them out and seeing what they're doing. And here's the premise of it. And this, by the way, this does not only happen for a mortgage. It happens for credit cards, car loans, student loans, whatever. But let's take, for example, and this is how we are shackled and we're so uneducated with what the banks are doing to us and what the financial institutions do to us in the United States. Let's assume you had a $500,000 loan. Okay. So let's put a $500,000. And you were lucky enough to get a really, really low interest rate, about 3.5%. And let's say your monthly payment was about $3,000 a month. So you're like, okay, I did pretty good. I got a 3.5% APR. I have $3,000 a month payment. I borrowed $500,000. So if you multiply $3,000 a month by 30 years, it comes out to $1,080,000. Now, I'm no rocket scientist, but if I loan Andy $100 right now, and he gave me back $200, I charge him 100% interest. So if the bank loaned me $500,000, and I paid them $1,080,000, not 1.8 million, $1,080,000, that's a little bit more than 100% interest. So please explain to me how I signed a contract that says 3.5, but I just paid over 100% interest, because that's in the fine print. Now, if I was to go to a mortgage company and sign documents and have them notarized, and it said 108% or 106% interest, I don't think anybody on the planet will sign that.
Nope.
But they trick us into doing it because we're not paying attention. We don't have the information. So once I found the information out, I'm like, okay, how do we solve this problem? And this is where the MMA comes in, because it eliminates a massive amount of interest, and we use the bank. What the bank uses does to us, we do against them. So perfect example. And if you go to Chase right now and put $20,000 into your Chase bank account, and I happen to ask Chase for a $20,000 credit card, they will gladly hand me a $20,000 credit card and charge me 15, 18, 20% interest.
Right.
And they'll give me your money, pay you nothing, and charge me 20%.
Yep.
And they rinse and repeat that over and over and over and over. And when they're done doing it over and over, they're going to do it over again. So how does that make any sense? So my scenario was very simple. When I saw the Money Max account and I checked it out, I went, wait a minute. This software is showing me how I can eliminate up to 60%, 70% of the interest the bank is charging me, and how they're ripping me off. Now, I understand. I'm going to try to explain it right now, and it's going to take a little bit more understanding for people to actually understand, but you'll get the general premise. And I'm sure Andy can put something on his site or whatever for you to go to a meeting. It takes about an hour to fully explain, but I'm going to give you the 30,000 foot level. Let's say I make $10,000 a month and I have that $500,000 loan,
right,
and my payment is $3,000 a month. And I'm going along my way, and I think I'm living the American dream, and I'm going to pay this $3,000 a month for 30 years. Well, the first month I make the $3,000 payment, chances are probably only about $300 is going to principal. So in the first 10 months, 300, maybe 3,000 goes to principal. First 2-3 years, maybe 10,000 goes to principal. So the bank is going to take all the interest up front. This is why you're paying 100+%. So they're going to take all their money up front, and I'm barely knocking principal down.
Right.
So if I'm lucky, I may pay down $10,000 and go from a $500,000 loan to $490 in 4 to 5 years, if I'm lucky. Well, yeah, that's why I'm going to pay, 30 years of my mortgage.
Right.
So what this Money Max account does, it beats the bank at their own game. So let's say, for example, you have a $10,000 a month salary, and you happen to have a credit card that has $10,000 or $20,000 limit, and you don't owe money on it, or you do owe some and you don't owe the others. The Money Max account will tell you what I'd like you to do today, Andy. I'd like you to send your mortgage company your full $10,000 salary. Send it all. Now, you may look at me and say, why would I do that? How am I going to put gas in my car? How am I going to eat? How am I going to do whatever? Just send the $10,000.
Right.
So when you send that $10,000, you go from $500,000 to $490 month one. Now, keep in mind, it would have taken 4 to 5 years to get to $490 before.
Right.
Now you're going to say, well, how do I pay my bills? Use the credit card.
Mm-hmm.
Pay all your bills on the credit card. But wait, didn't you just say that credit card companies are ripping us off and they're charging us too much interest? You think the mortgage companies at 108% is a lot? Try the credit card companies. They're about 400%, 300% interest. So, but we're not going to pay that interest, because after the first month you paid all your bills on it and you get paid the second month, we're going to take your paycheck and we're going to pay off the credit card.
Right. Right.
Which has no interest.
Right.
And we're going to rinse and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And by us rinsing and repeat, all of a sudden now your house is paid off in 5 to 7 years. Because by the second time I do this, now we're down $20,000 in interest. It will probably take me 8 years, 7 years to get to $20,000 down in interest at the regular $3,000 a month payment. But then some people say, hey, I'm pretty smart. I'm going to do biweekly payments. Or I'm going to send extra money to my mortgage company to knock off 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
Folks, it doesn't work that way. Read your fine print. If you send an extra $200 to your mortgage company, an extra $300 to your mortgage company, all they do is they hold that money in escrow. loaning out to people that's doing credit cards, loaning out to people that's doing car loans, loaning out to other people that's buying mortgages. They put it all together, and in your fine print, that doesn't go to your principal until it equals a full payment. So they're basically using your money to make more money and giving you nothing in return. This is how the banks are wealthy. This is how the banks has all those high-rise buildings all over the world, and this is what they do. And this is a way of teaching people, but again, they don't teach this stuff in school. And then again, some people will sit there and listen to what I just said and says, oh, well, I'm not jumping out the airplane, I'll die. Oh, no, I'm not doing a money max account. Okay, well, then go ahead and keep your mortgage, because let me tell you what most people in the United States do. They buy a home at 35, 40 years old, whatever age they are. Hopefully they're lucky and they buy one in their 20s.
Right.
And they're going to refinance it in 5 years.
Yep.
Then they're going to refinance it in 5 more years.
Yep.
Then they're going to refinance it in 5 more years. And their payoff date is going to be in their 80s.
Right.
How's that living? I can have you debt free in 5 to 7 years, all your debt, without spending an extra dollar, leveraging the bank's money to eliminate interest. And that's what UFF is all about in the Money Max account. I did not know. I understood the principle of this before because I've done this before, but I didn't have a GPS. I didn't have a tool or a system that costs $14 million to program that has 4 million pieces of code in it that tells you precisely to the penny what to move where and what to move then. Kind of the same system the bank has, but they use against us. We get to use it against them. And that's what I learned 59 days ago. And you know, what's the interesting part about it, I looked at my numbers this morning for the people that I've helped. In just a short period of 59 days, I've saved all the people that's joined $124,000 in 59 days. And our goal is to save them 18 million in 5 years, 5 to 7 years. And we're going to accomplish that goal. And this is just people that I talk to. The company is in the billions that they're saving. So it's pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. 2.5 billion plus, right? It grows literally by a few million, 20 million a day. Yep. It's kind of insane. So I love the flow of this conversation, Clay, because I think if we jumped into this at the beginning, people are still, wrapped up and thinking about, oh, you're asking me to jump out of a plane. You're asking me to jump out of a plane. Maybe, right? But again, let's assume maybe the plane's on the ground. Like, let's ask some questions. Let's dig into this. Let's find out a little bit more rather than jumping to conclusions, thinking it's too good to be true. There are wonderful people out here. Another thing that I do think that is worth mentioning is that United Financial Freedom has been around for 20 years in a very, very highly regulated industry, right? If they were shady characters, they would not be around. They would have been put under a long time ago. They have grown and grown and grown over those 20 years. And to Clay's point, they've invested millions of dollars into this to make it the most efficient way to pay off your debts that is available to United States and Americans. So
yeah, well, you're going to have people that's going to Google them or whatever, and they're going to say, "Oh, I Googled them, and I saw this person said they got ripped off by them, or it's a scam." Okay, well, I guess if they were a scam, I guess they've been scamming people for 20 years. Right. Because Google says it doesn't make it so. In fact, there's the most amazing person on the planet, on our planet forever. Google him, see what they say. Google Jesus, see what they say about him.
Yeah. You can always, how did it go? I think it was when I was doing my master's program. Like, you can always find research or proof to uphold your opinion if you dig long enough, right? You're going to find what you want to find, or you can keep an open mind and read the thousands of people that have cleared their debt and are now debt free in their 40s and 50s, not their 80s and 90s. So it's up to you. You can choose to look at the doubters, or choose to have an open mind and be debt free in a much faster time. It's literally up to you.
Amen.
So love it. Very good. Well, So for what it's worth, and Clay kind of set this up, we obviously have been talking about United Financial Freedom, which is the company. MoneyMax account is the actual product that we're using right here. If you scan this right here, it does take you to, and I can put this in the show notes as well, it will take you out to a page that has lots and lots of information, articles, news articles. There's a bunch of information right there. Reach out to me if there's any follow-up questions there, but there's a lot of information that you can get right there, and I can connect you up with more information. Like Clay said, they have weekly calls that break everything down line by line, so there's not any question as to what it is and what it does. So if you choose to accept this, reach out, and you will thank your future self will thank you for giving this a chance, right?
Amen.
All right, good stuff. All right, Clay. Well, thank you so much for your time. Everybody on the podcast ends with 3 key questions here. So let's take just a quick second here and kind of wrap this up with a few kind of personal questions here, but I think it will relate. I'm sure there will be some wonderful Clayisms in these questions here. So here we go, sir. Who is the leader that you most admire and try to emulate? I know that you've had some amazing mentors throughout the world, throughout your lifetime. So who are some leaders that you try to emulate?
God.
There we go. That's pretty simple. Why God? Why is he on top of your list?
Because he's everything. He's everything. I mean, that's why it's such a simple answer, because he's everything.
There you go.
I mean, I tell people I'm not the most charismatic person in the world. I'm definitely not the smartest person in the world. I'm definitely not the best looking person in the world, but I feel that God is everything. I mean, he pushes me to go through what I go through, and I do this because of him. Right. And that's what it's all. That's the number one. There ain't nobody else is number one but him.
Yep. I love it. And for anybody that knows you for longer than 2 seconds, they know that this is a mission and calling. This is not, and to your point, like, you're not lining your pockets by helping all these people. You are literally just doing this as a mission, and fulfilling the calling that God has on you. And we appreciate that for sure. Question number 2, sir. What learning has most impacted you in the last year? I can't imagine this, but go ahead.
The MMA, absolutely, 1,000,000%. It just blows my mind. I can't believe these gentlemen, John and Skylar, did what they did and kept this going for 20 years and came up with this. This is such an important tool for everyone. I mean, 50 million people need to have this. Yeah. They need to have it like today, like right now, 100 million. Everybody needs this tool right now. Right. And once you dig into it, you're going to find out one little topic. And this is going to, again, here's the airplane story again. It doesn't cost anything, because the fee you pay for them for the software, because of course there's a fee for the software. Mm-hmm. By the time you're done with the fee, you make that fee back within a month or 2. Yeah. And then you get to keep the software for the rest of your life. Yep. And you can will the software, put it in your living trust to your children, because as you leave to the next section of life, mm-hmm. you leave everything, and all the finances, everything's in the MMA, and that goes to your children. There's no transfer fee. There's no cost to it. You just transfer it to your children, and now they know where everything is. Yep. It's the best thing on the planet.
I love it. I couldn't say it better myself. Very, very good. All right. Last question, sir. We talked about this a little bit, but again, back to the idea of empowered learning. You mentioned quite a few things that are not taught in education. We spent a minute on that, but just to kind of sum and wrap things up here, what would you do, or how would you empower learning for future generations?
For future generations, it's interesting. I feel so sad that teachers and educators are not paid what they should be paid in this country. I mean, it's just really sad, because they're bringing up the next generation, right? And they're not given the tools. I mean, I know some teachers literally use money out of their pocket, and they don't pay them that much to buy school supplies. Yep. And it's just sad in our country that we have educators that should be put up to a whole different standard, because they're educating the next generation, and nobody teaches anything. Nobody shows anything. You go through this process, and everyone's walking around, and 90% are walking around asleep. Right. So get the information you need to get informed, understand things like the Money Max account, understand how credit impacts you, understand that you being middle class and financing a whole bunch of things to keep up with the Joneses is not the smart thing to do. Right. Understand that your dollar that you make, look, you need to have $100 that makes babies.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not making babies, you're missing it. Right. And someone's looking at me right now, well, how do I make my money grow? You got to educate yourself.
Right.
There's lots of ways to do it.
Right.
Lots of ways to do it, but they don't teach us. So you have to go out and do that, or you end up being the 90% that's asleep. And why would you want to go through 70, 80, 90, 100 years of your life asleep? Why would anyone want to do that? I mean, God said it very simple. Look, we are supposed to have riches. We're supposed to live our life in abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So why live your life average when you can live your life in abundance?
Yep. I agree. Awesome. Well, Clay, thank you so much for this, my friend. Like I said, this has been kind of a long time coming, but it was definitely worth it. I know that I think there was one time where you just weren't feeling well, and maybe at the moment we're like, oh, shucks, we didn't have that. But at that moment, and I think we've had this comment since then, we didn't have the MMA to share with folks. So I think it was a providential thing that we pushed this to the right a little bit, and I think this was the time to do it. So thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom and for all that you've done for me and for your thousands of people that follow and listen to you. You make a bigger impact than you will probably know this side of heaven. So thank you very much, sir.
You're very welcome. God always has a plan, and everything happens when it's supposed to happen. So
that's right.
I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.